It's another day here at the Comeback Team Studios. And this is your boy, Bek Lover, and you're listening to another episode of Interesting Times with Bek Lover, exclusively on the Bek Lover podcast, where you might just learn a thing or two about life. I gather all the strange, interesting, important news from around the world, so you don't have to tune in anywhere else except right here with your boy, your friend, Bek Lover. If I think something is important or funny or crazy or sad or whatever, interesting, I put it all together and I make these nice little episodes so I can keep you in the know and you can ignore all the miserable other news outlets that are out there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like, drop a comment, tell your friends about it. Available where all podcasts are found. You can watch these episodes on YouTube, Rumble, and on Spotify. And I could really use the help on Spotify, so please subscribe, and I appreciate you. A lot of little interesting stories. Today we're kind of going to be more in the wildlife for the beginning of this episode. There's a lot of interesting stories with animals and rodents and spiders. Oh my. And some pretty crazy things have happened. So I'm going to cover those real quick, and then we'll get into the headlines that you probably already know about. But in any event, the world we live in is so much more interesting than fiction could ever be. We live in interesting times indeed. So here we go. First story. I don't know how many of you are scared of spiders. I'm not really scared of them. I mean, I really think they do more good than harm, like take out pests, mosquitoes, and all that stuff. But I mean, it doesn't make me feel like I want to hold a tarantula in my hand. We have a pretty scary looking spider that's heading our way, especially here in the Northeast. You saw it going viral the last few weeks, these flying spiders, as they call them, not because they have wings, but the way they use the silk that they shoot out. You know, like Spider-Man, they kind of move quickly, and it looks like they're flying, but it's really the silk that they, you know, shoot out to trap insects and I guess climb and move around with. But they don't have wings, so we don't got to worry about that, because when I read some of the headlines, it was like, oh, these flying spiders. I'm like, great, what's next with everything that's happened over the last 4 or 5 years? In any event, let me play this clip real quick, and we'll take a look at this creature known as the Joro spider.
The Joro spider arrived in the southern U.S. more than a decade ago from their native Asia, and the concern ever since is that they'll spread to the rest of the country and beyond.
Why is everything that's destroying America somehow originating, and I'm not trying to be racist here, but the sickness that closed the whole world, Asia. Those lantern bugs that make my life miserable every spring, they're all over the place, Asia. Now we got a spider that kind of moves like it's flying, that's venomous, but not harmful to us, I guess. But Asia. Besides sometimes the bad drivers. No offense, guys. You're really not, like, I don't know. You know, I in my area is very heavily Korean. I love you guys, man. But, like, really, man, sometimes? Really, guys? Like, you're either too slow or you're blowing through the stop sign. And that's the truth. And I love you guys. You're like some of the nicest people in the world. That's a fact. You just, I don't think the best drivers out there. I don't know why. But maybe you're too cautious. You know, in New York, you got to be a little more aggressive when you drive. You guys are too nice that maybe you're just too nice to be in the New York City area where you're driving. I think maybe is the perception. Who knows?
So far, Sieb hasn't received any calls about the creatures, but he did write a blog earlier this year.
I mean, this thing looks like a bumblebee or a yellow bee jacket, and a spider had sex and created this thing, because it looks like the colors of a bee with the yellow and black jacket. It's definitely an intimidating looking spider. There's no doubt about it. It's scarier looking, in my opinion, than a tarantula is, I guess.
To warn his customers about them.
For whatever reason, my blog article is blown up with all this attention regarding the Joro spider.
What is the one message that you want to get to the public now that
This is important. They're really not harmful to us, from what I'm understanding. Even if they bite you, you might have like a mosquito bite or like a little numb area, but it won't kill you.
it is hitting headlines and people are watching out for them.
So can it bite or sting you? Yes, it can. Is it enough to puncture our skin? Maybe. And then you probably get some localized swelling and some pain, but that's really about it.
So not a big deal, guys. As you can see in this
Despite
video
their flamboyant
here,
qualities,
there's
the Joro
children literally
spider
playing
is
with them.
shy
They're
and
crawling
won't
over their
likely try to
hands.
go
So
indoors or
if they were
anywhere
that
near people.
dangerous to us, they wouldn't be playing with it like that. Things that we shouldn't play around with: bulls. But human beings, especially in Spain, like to have bullfights and torture these animals. If they're not being tortured in Spain or in a cheeseburger, they're in a rodeo usually. So this article from multiple people injured after rodeo bull jumps fence at Oregon event, a volatile situation. I have footage here for those of you that can watch. For those of you that are listening, you're going to see this massive bull in a rodeo pen, you know, where the dirt is and the cowboys are like playing around with the bull. He jumps over the protective fence right into a crowd of people, and then he gets loose into the town. Some people were injured during this. So you got to be careful whenever there's animals that are very strong and powerful. I mean, that fence looked kind of low to me, so I don't know how they expect that to protect people. I guess they assume the bulls are too dumb, but this bull wasn't. He not only did he jump over the fence, here's video footage of him being chased down the road, and the cowboys literally on horseback. He just demolishes a sign. The cowboys on a horse with a rope. I mean, these animals are no joke. I got charged by a bull one time in Albania. It wasn't like a massive bull, but it was a male cow, which is what a bull is. And he wasn't like as huge as the ones you see in rodeos, because probably doesn't have all the steroids and the stuff that they put into them, you know. In any event, it's a scary experience. They're very aggressive. Can't mess around with them. So just be careful when you go to a rodeo. Next animal story. Wild elephants may have names that other elephants use to call them. This is reported by many news outlets, including NPR. Wild elephants seem to address each other using distinctive rumbling sounds that could be akin to individual names. That's according to a provocative new study in journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution. Sometimes another bottlenose dolphin will imitate somebody else's signature whistle in order to get their attention, so effectively calling them by their name, says Mickey Pardo, a biologist at Cornell University. He wondered if elephants, which are known to be vocal mimics, might do similar things. The idea from the outset of the project was to figure out if elephants have names. He means names the animals call themselves rather than the names like Margaret and Marie that researchers working in nature preserves have given them. The rumbles themselves are highly structural variable. There's quite a lot of variation in the acoustic structure. If elephants had names, not every call would be expected to contain one, just like people don't use each other's names every time they speak to each other. Still, the research team used machine learning to see if the rumbles contain identifying information, essentially a name, that their computer module could learn to accurately predict the receiver of a call. What they found is that their model was able to identify the correct elephant recipient of the call 27.5% of the time, which is much better than it performed during a control analysis that fed it random data. This indicates, he says, that there must be something that calls that allowing the model to figure out at least some of the time who that call was addressed to. So basically, elephants are probably calling each other with unique sounds, which is what a name is, right? Hey, Bek Lover, that's my sound, Bek Lover. But if it was elephants calling each other, it'd be like, funny story, when I was younger, we were watching Discovery Channel about elephants, and one of my younger family members, I won't say which one, could have been a cousin, a brother, or could have been anyone. I won't embarrass them, but he was like 13, I was like 15. We're sitting there watching TV with the family. This National Geographic with the elephants happened to be, you know, on television, so we're all kind of just watching. And then it gets into how the elephants mate, and the male elephant was aroused and massive in that department. And this younger family member of mine goes, well, why does that elephant have 5 legs? Shit you not. I looked at him and I said, that's not 5 legs, son. That ain't no 5 legs. Look a little closer. TMZ, killer python devours mother of 4 before machete ending. And what you'll see in this footage in Indonesia, they discovered a woman inside of the snake. She was consumed alive. The guy's throwing up as they're cutting the snake open to remove her corpse. You feel like going to Indonesia and hanging out in the jungle? Well, the death of a mother of four in Indonesia looked like something out of a grisly horror flick. The all-too-real story happened Thursday when the female victim named Farida was making her way through the forest to get to the market near her house. During her walk, the snake reportedly slithered up to her and sank its teeth into her leg before wrapping itself around her body, strangling the life out of her. Then, as if it wasn't bad enough, the serpent swallowed her entire corpse, starting with the head. Naturally, her husband, Noni, got concerned after he hadn't heard from her in a while and rounded up some of the locals to go look for her. The next day, they continued the hunt. They found a 20-foot python in a wooded area with its stomach protruding, which was all caught on video. Check it out. Noni and others sliced open the viper and machetes, confirming their worst fears that Farida was dead inside. Could you imagine? Oh, honey, I'm going to get some milk and cereal for the kids. She goes down the block and gets eaten alive. We've all heard the stories. Things are escalating with this Ukraine war, America's involvement. De facto, we've been fighting for the Ukraine with our weapons and money. Russia's definitely starting to antagonize back. Russian Navy vessels to dock in Havana, Cuba. That's the second time in history that we might have some real aggression. And this was during the time of JFK, if you remember the Russian-Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, this might be 2.0, okay, which means we're one step closer to all-out conflict with Russia. Havana says fleet does not have nuclear weapons, but arrival comes amid rising tensions between Russia and the U.S. over Ukraine. Yeah, we're just going to take Cuba's word for it, the communist country, that there's no weapon, there's no nukes on there. We should just trust. We should trust Russia, and we should trust Cuba that there's no nukes on these vessels because they're not hostile towards us, especially Russia, with everything we've done in the Ukraine. 4 Russian vessels, including a nuclear-powered sub, will arrive in Havana next week. Cuba's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said on Thursday that the vessels, none of which carry any nuclear weapons, will dock in the Cuban capital between June 12th and 17th. This visit corresponds to historically friendly relations between Cuba and the Russian Federation, strictly adheres to the international regulations. But the unusual deployment of the powerful nuclear sub, Kazan, and 3 other naval vessels so close to the U.S. comes amid major tensions over the war in the Ukraine. Cuba and the U.S. are only about 90 miles apart to their closest point. Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested this week that Moscow could take asymmetrical steps if Western countries like Germany and the U.S. were to supply Ukraine with weapons that were then used on Russian soil, which basically means if you keep giving them weapons that hits the heart of Russia, this war is going to escalate. And my question to the American people, haven't we had enough? Ukraine-Russia war. Kiev strikes Russian air defenses in Crimea after downing a Su-57 stealth jet. Ukraine has claimed it damaged 3 Russian surface-to-air defense systems overnight in a missile attack on occupied Crimea. One S-400 anti-aircraft missile unit was hit near Dazhkoy, and 2 more S-300 anti-aircraft missile units were attacked near occupied Kornomorsk. And yo, your guys' languages, man, no offense, man, but Slavic and like Russian and Ukrainian, like people say like languages evolved, like the languages is so hard to speak. Arabic is mad hard, like it's just the names, man, I can't even read them. You guys, just your languages are like, I thought Albanian was crazy, but like, nah, man, like you guys take the cake, man. You, the Indians. Speaking of Indians, completely not planned. 9 Hindu pilgrims dead in India's Jammu after militant attack. At least 9 people were killed and 33 injured when a bus carrying Hindu pilgrims plunged into a deep gorge after a suspected militant attack in the Indian federal territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The shameful incident is a true picture of worrying security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, the Himalayan region, which also is claimed by Pakistan, has been roiled by militant violence since the start of an anti-Indian insurgency in 1989. That's how long that area has had tension. Kashmir, for any of you those that may not be familiar with it, it's a region between Pakistan and India. Tensions have been really high in India, especially with Modi, very clearly Islamophobic. anti-Muslim. They knocked down a ancient mosque. They just built and blessed a Hindu temple over its ashes. Modi was present. This definitely doesn't help the situation in Kashmir, and you can expect tension in the future between Hindus and Muslims. Their religions couldn't be further apart. They hate each other, and the only person that got close to bringing peace to all of them was Mahatma Gandhi. May he rest in peace. Again, I'm going to report this because it's important. Microplastics found in every human semen sample tested and studied. Chinese scientists say further research on potential harm to reproduction from contamination is imperative. Microplastic pollution has been found in all human semen samples tested in the study. Sperm counts in men have been falling for decades, and 40% of low counts remain unexplained. Another study found microplastics in the semen of 6 out of 10 healthy young men in Italy. Another study in China found the pollutants in half of 25 samples. Microplastics have also recently been discovered in human blood, placentas, and breast milk. Millions of tons of plastic waste are dumped in the environment, and much is broken down into microplastics. As emerging research increasingly implicates microplastic exposure as a potential factor impacting human health, okay, they're finding it in your sperm, ladies and gentlemen. We got to do something about it. I guess I should have paired this with the animal stories earlier, but this is a nice one. Dog runs 4 miles to get help for owner who crashed car into Oregon ravine. Brandon Garrett was driving solo with his 4 dogs near where his family was camping when he failed to navigate a turn. A dog ran 4 miles to get help from his owner. The case unfolded as Brandon Garrett was driving with his 4 dogs north the U.S. Forest Service Road 39 in Baker County. Thankfully for him, one of his dogs ran back to the campsite, and the animal's appearance led the Garrett family to realize something had gone wrong. The dog ended up running nearly 4 miles through the wilderness before tracking down the other campers. That is why they call it man's best friend. Massachusetts school allowed to ban students' 2-gender shirt. Court rules, reported by Reuters. Massachusetts public middle school did not violate a student's free speech rights under the U.S. Constitution by requiring the boy to stop wearing a T-shirt that said there are only 2 genders. The Boston-based First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Sunday issued a ruling siding with educators at Nicholas Middle School in Middleburg, who last year required Liam Morrison to remove the shirt after concluding his message demeaned the identity of transgender and gender nonconforming students. The case is one of a growing number of lawsuits by conservative litigants challenging school policies aimed at protecting LGBT students. So I do believe that was a violation of his right, whether the LGBT community likes it or not. If it's against their religion and you're not letting them express their views based on their beliefs, then I believe that they ruled incorrectly. Now, if it's polite or not, that's a different debate. But I don't like any challenge to free speech so long as no one's making direct physical threats or inciting violence. This is, I guess, an interesting story. A woman whose masked attacker turned out to be her ex-husband. So basically, that's going to be a Lifetime movie also. Jana Kramer, Morgan Metzer, recalls being zip-tied, choked, and assaulted by a masked man who turned out to be her own ex-husband, whose behavior immediately after the attack aroused suspicion. Shortly after the divorce, he got really stalkerish. I just had this weird feeling when I looked at him. I don't even know how to explain it. Shortly after we signed the divorce documents, we traded kids back and forth every other week. He would make random weird comments of trying to get back together. He kept trying all these things to get me back. Then he thought he was going to win me back, buy me flowers and stuff like that. So the intruder used a device to mask his voice, wearing what Morgan described as Batman-style mask to hide his face. He beat her with a gun, strangled her, zip-tied her, and then abused her physically and sexually. When he was 30 minutes into beating me, tying me, when he decided to strangle me, I didn't feel anything else. I didn't feel being punched or the gun because the adrenaline was going. I felt the strangling, and it was the worst feeling in the world. Then the intruder left after telling her, "You're going to be fine, but we can't say that about your ex-husband. You're really going to miss him." That's when I went, wow, it's him. What an idiot. Wow, would somebody randomly say you're going to miss your husband? Probably not. Make the story short, his ass got arrested. He's in big trouble, and they're making a movie about it. For those of you on the far right, some try to say that I am. I am neither right or left. I'm just right all the time. Sandy Hook families agreed to Alex Jones' bankruptcy liquidation. He went public this last week announcing that InfoWars will be permanently closing. A lot of people do not feel good about that because they don't like what they perceive to be an attack on free speech. YouTuber charged for having a helicopter blast a Lamborghini with fireworks. Okay, I thought you guys think I'm interesting. You guys should follow this guy, I guess. I guess I'm boring. Alex Choi, 24, is charged with causing the placement of an explosive or incendiary device on aircraft. The Department of Justice announced Thursday if convicted, Choi faces a maximum of 10 years in prison. All right, you guys better take it easy with these pranks and shit. Like, make videos safely for social media, okay? Officials believe the video was taken at El Mirage Dry Lake Bed in rural San Bernardino County. That's in California, downtown Los Angeles, about 60 miles away. Choi has over 1 million followers on Instagram and nearly that number of subscribers on YouTube, entertains his audience with what he calls the greatest car shenanigans. Spokesman for the Department of Justice said that Choi appeared in court on Thursday and a federal magistrate ordered him released on $50,000 bond. His arraignment is scheduled for July 2nd. Good luck there, Mr. Choi. You should film what it's like to be in jail. Tokyo City is developing a dating app to encourage marriage and childbirth. Japan has plummeting birth rate. Okay, the country's birth rate fell to an all-time low, according to health ministry data. Wednesday last year, there was only 474,000 marriages, down from 500, while births totaled 727,000, down from 770. Okay? They need to make more children. On the national level, the government has been trying to solve a series of labor shortage by promising cash payments for families with children and supporting child care facilities. I got an idea. Why don't we send some of the 10 million illegal migrants who have been creating crime and chaos? Japan's beautiful. I bet you they would never let them just come into their country. But we should, without checking them or vetting them or making sure that we're not going to put any of our fellow citizens or police officers like we did last week at risk. I find it ironic how some countries like them and Italy need people to be born, and in places that we can't really sustain anymore, we're forced to take them. Maybe we should work a deal out with Japan. Bird flu, please keep your eyes on this. I got a bad feeling about this one, guys. But bird flu virus from Texas, human case kills 100% of ferrets in CDC study. Okay, they had their first confirmed death in Mexico from this transference of bird flu to humans. 2-year-old girl, first case of human H5N1 bird flu detected in Australia. Okay, so this thing is spreading. We need to keep our eyes open, be prepared, be entertained, listen to what's interesting. We live in a crazy world, and I'll always keep you posted. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at Bek Lover NYC. And just remember that we live in an interesting world indeed. Check out my next podcast about to be released and all the stuff I made in the past. This is Bek Lover, signing off. Till the next time.